Recording in progress.
Good morning, dear Dharma friends. It's another morning with some light drizzle here in Portland, Oregon. This is the being that thinks of itself as Robert Beatty. And this is a collecting of the Portland Insight Meditation community. And I'm glad to see you this morning. A little difficult getting moving. My class at the center finished at 9 and took a long time to get home. I found myself sitting places. Just have to store up a little energy to head for the car now. But it's today, it's now. And I just stumbled on this. I have no idea where this came from. It's in my poetry collection. It's called She Let Go. And it goes like this. It's by Reverend Sapphire Rose. Taking a nice deep breath. She let go. Without a thought or a word, she let go. She let go of the fear. She let go of the judgments. She let go of the confluence of opinions swarming around her head. She let go of the committee of indecision within her. She let go of all the right reasons. Wholly and completely, without hesitation or worry, she just let go. She didn't ask anyone for advice. She didn't read a book on how to let go. She didn't search the scriptures. She just let go. She let go of all the memories that held her back. She let go of the anxiety that kept her from moving forward. She let go of the planning and all the calculations about how to do it just right. She didn't promise to let go. She didn't journal about it. She didn't write the projected date in her day timer. She made no public announcement and put no ad in the paper. She didn't check the weather report or read her daily horoscope. She just let go. She didn't analyze whether she should let go. She didn't call her friends to discuss the matter. She didn't do a 5-step spiritual mind treatment. She didn't call a prayer line. She didn't utter one word. She just let go. No one was around when it happened. There was no applause or congratulations. No one thanked her or praised her. No one noticed a thing. Like a leaf falling from a tree. She just let go. There was no effort. There was no struggle. It wasn't good and it wasn't bad. It was what it was. And it is just that. In the space of letting go, she let it all be. A small smile came over her face. A light breeze blew through her, and the sun and the moon shone forevermore. So here we are, dear friends. Is there something to do? There are some rituals and meanings we can summon. We might remind ourselves of the refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. There's not a lot of doing in that. I aspire to be awake. In case there's concern about this, I will post the poem in my blog, robertbeatty.com, when we're finished this morning. I take refuge in being awake right here and now. I take refuge in the Dharma, in the way things actually are right here and now. I take refuge in the community of beings who have let go, the descending lineage of which we are part. We bring to the descending lineage, the Sangha of our practice. And together they come to life. There is breathing in and there's breathing out. There are thoughts. There may be thoughts. We might say that we are practicing vipassana or mindfulness, satipatthana vipassana. There are many strategies we can use. Mindful of breathing, mindful of the four foundations. Developing concentration so the mind will focus more fully. We can develop the Brahma Viharas. We can develop loving kindness and compassion and sympathetic joy and equanimity. And these are all very powerful, beautiful strategies. We can study the self, the experience of self. We can become very familiar with the neurotic tendencies, the psychological patterns. And then in a moment with no planning, somehow we let go. It lets go. And there's nothing and no one to do anything. So let us rest here in the present moment. The breath breathing itself in awareness. in the midst of the 10,000 things. The things on the to-do list. The things on the personal worry list. The things on the responsibility or the shame or guilt or activities to plan list. The body sits here and breathes. It breathes whether there's presence and awareness or not, for a time, a lifetime. And we can use this in-breathing and out-breathing as a marvelous point of orientation. It sings the song of impermanence, rising, rising, falling, falling. With clarity and concentration, and a persistence of staying present with this breath, thoughts become knowable as thoughts. The mood becomes knowable as mood. And so we become deeply intimate with this breath. we weave into the fabric of any efforting strands of love and compassion. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. And when we discover that there's hurting from this subtle dukkha that arises simply by being here, to the suffering that comes from losses, from injury, from our profound vulnerability, whenever I discover that there's suffering, I aspire to hold myself in sweet compassion. Mindfulness, knowing through a lens of significant concentration. And love as there being a room for everything. And compassion and openness to embrace ourselves, to embrace the experience of this moment as it is. one strategy, the primary strategy from the Buddha. Sit quietly, embrace the breath. Notice when the mind awakens from some trance, some worry, some planning, some engagement with the five hindrances. Notice the quality of mind. Is this a mind that's wanting something? It's dissatisfied with the moment and is wanting something different. Is it a mind that is aversive, that is striking against the object of experience, disliking? Is it a mind that's restless and agitated, worried, planning, struggling, trying to figure it out, something out? Lost in some delusion that if I can just get rid of this or surmount that or figure this out, then I'll be okay. Or a mind that's in sloth and torpor, sleepy dullness. Can't really pay attention. It's too tired, too groggy. Or a mind that has succumbed to doubt to some degree. That doesn't really believe in one's own capacity to awaken. Or perhaps there is some emotion. Many of our emotions are well practiced, and we wear them we wear them as an identity. Waking up to all this. Letting go to all this. Letting it all be exactly as it is. It's sunny now. A break in the clouds. Have you something you'd like to share? Goodbye, Dave. Mindful driving. We had a great class last night in the Living This Life Fully gathering. The author of the book, Mirka Nastor, came and spent 2 hours with us. She's a person of great kindness and 40 years of Dharma practice. And she's a very high-level fabric artist. But she wrote a dissertation on skillful speech, essentially, way back when, cross-culturally. So anyway, we had a wonderful gathering focused on that beautiful book. Highly recommend it. So back to you. How is it in that which you take to be your one wild and precious life?
Robert?
I hear a voice.
This is
Pamela.
Pamela.
Hello, Pamela. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, speaking of the book, I had a question, and I really wanted to direct it to you, and the time wasn't right last night, so I thought I'd bring it up today. Regarding Munindra, in chapter 5, I ran across something I'd like you to comment on.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Okay, so he's talking about anger, expressing anger.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about, well, he said feeding the anger. He's giving an example of somebody, and he's explaining feeding the anger. You also hurt yourself at the same time. And those who are around you are fed by your anger. You also pollute the environment, sending thoughts everywhere. He says thoughts vibrate. Your whole mouth becomes impure. And the part that intrigued me was the thoughts vibrating part.
Mm.
And so I'm remembering this other thing. You read it, and I have it on my refrigerator. And I've never totally understood the last line. It said, any thoughts, words, or deeds I do, whether good or evil, those I will inherit.
Mm.
I get the words and deeds part, but maybe the thoughts vibrating links into this thing about Munindra, and I wondered if you could comment on it.
We try to make sense of the utter mystery that is life. And we have theories. Do thoughts actually vibrate? Vibrate is a reference from physics. Do thoughts go out into the world and affect other people and, that kind of thing? I have no idea. Where I can sort of hang my hat is if there's a storm of anger going on in this mind, and if it's seen as justified and fed, I don't know that I'd use the word vibrate, but it can get greater. I can feed it. I can build that fire by reflecting on the other person's badness or something like that. And I've been I've been many times in the room with someone who's angry or angry at me, and I feel it somehow. Now, whether that's through facial gesture or maybe there's some psychic connection, I don't know about that. But I think what Munindra was very embedded in the Theravadan Buddhist model. And in that model, there's an understanding that everything is interconnected and that that I'm responsible for my little part of it, and if I can withdraw my quote vibrations from the mix, then things stand a chance of calming down. And the teachings are significantly about creating a sense of agency in the individual, that I can do something about this anger or this sadness or this despair, whatever it is that's existing in me. I have an input. I can not continue this stream of thoughts. I can certainly not act them out physically or verbally or on the computer or something like that. So is that addressing what you're asking at all?
Yeah, somewhat. I'm reminded of something I came across at one time: that which we feed with our attention, we increase in our life.
Yeah.
That which we feed with our attention. So the question is, when you're trying to address something, is it better to, not feed it with your attention or attend to it in a different way? Because if you don't feed it, maybe you're not addressing it,
Mm-hmm.
So it's a balancing act, and you somehow have to know, when do you feed and when do you
Boy,
do
isn't
what
that
they
the
call
truth?
a
Yeah.
spiritual distraction. Yeah.
There's a I had quite an extended conversation with someone recently about this very issue. There's something that I don't, you really won't find, in my experience, in the Buddhist textbooks, that I think is very important. In fact, I think it's life-saving. And that is the practice of mindful hate. And what I mean by that is, let's say you've got some simmering anger from something long ago or something that happened recently. And you're doing, in your practice, you're noticing it, this is anger, these are the thoughts, thank you for sharing. You put them aside and you put them aside. But they just don't go anywhere. They just continue to simmer. They show up in your dreams, or you find yourself being short-tempered with somebody else, or there's this thing happening. And this is a fruit of 45 years of psychotherapy training and experience, and mixing that with the Dharma. that there is a place sometimes to say to oneself, there's anger here. There's something going on here. I want to find out what it is, actually. And we take ourselves to our sacred spot, to our meditation spot, or we sacralize the spot we're in. It's one of the things that's really skilled therapists are able to do. Or teachers, they can create in a room a place which is safe, and in which one takes refuge, in a sense, in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then says, okay, I'm going to look at this anger. I'm going to feel what this is. Same with sadness, same with all the emotions. And then one can use different strategies to not to amplify, not to amp up, but to allow the expression of the anger in a safe, very low karma place. And so that then one can do things like write the hate-filled letter that you know you're not going to send, but write it and get that expression. Feel what's happening in the body and write it. And sometimes this can be incredibly powerful and scary sometimes, because you're afraid, oh no, this rage is going to take over the world. And there's a great term. It's called, from 2-year-olds, it's called talionic rage. If a 2-year-old could, they would tear you limb from limb and throw you out the window. They have that much rage. And that's in us. And if when we were that age, our parents punished us for having that, and we weren't able to live that through and finish it, then sometimes we have a bunch of that. And so there's a place in safety when working with an individual myself, I have always set up rules. It's like, we're not going to hurt each other. I don't want you to do anything that will hurt you or destroy the space. And we're going to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And we're not doing this to act it out and jazz it up or to validate it. We're doing it ultimately to realize that there's no one here. There's no one angry. It's just anger. And so then we turn toward it and we mindfully let that happen. And then there comes a moment when we say, thank you. That was a very useful dive into that anger. And then we can go back to, thank you for sharing. Come back to the breath, come back to the breath. So there's an honoring of anger and all the other emotions. And there are circles in which this is not a popular view. Thich Nhat Hanh in particularly, and look where he came from. He came from Vietnam, the Vietnam War, right? He created that order of interbeing, and his friends were killed by both sides because they wouldn't take sides. But in that tradition, there's this would be seen as encouraging and strengthening the anger. And it really isn't that. It's done very consciously. It's kind of like a surgery. There's something pretty dark in there. I think we need to do an exploratory surgery and take it out. Or we need to find out what it is. So that's another side to the anger question. We can do something, you alluded to this, I think. There's something called spiritual bypassing, in which, and you've probably met people like this. They're very nice people. And one can find such people easily in the catalogs for healing centers, like Brighton Bush and places like that. And it's all about sweetness and light. There's no bass tones. And so this is a view of this. And I remembered in this conversation I had with somebody just recently, there's a really powerful book. It was really, I don't remember it well, but as I recall, it was really a women's book, though I found it useful myself. It's called The Dance of Anger, Harriet Goldor Lerner, I think. It was very big for a while. And there's another book that I find very useful, which is called The Angry Book. It's a little thin book by a psychiatrist. I forget his name. But if anger is of interest, I highly recommend both or either of those. You're muted, Pamela. Oh, you're muted again. You weren't, and then you are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That's good.
Robert?
It's B. Hello, B.
Hi, Robert. Good to see you and everyone. Nice to be in Sangha. I have a little follow-up question for you there to Pamela's question. You started out by saying there was a place for mindful hate, and that was a word that I kind of startled with a little bit. And I wondered, did you choose that deliberately? And how does mindful hate relate to mindful anger?
I think that's an interesting question. Anger, when really let loose, turns to hatred, I think. It's the polarity in the Five Hindrances. One of the standard translations is the first two are lust and hate. And they are terms, concepts that have to do with a continuum which goes all the way from rage that would kill in hatred all the way to, I don't like this mental state. It's all one it's the mind that strikes against the object. It's the mind that is not accepting of what is. It's going to change it, by golly, by getting rid of it. And some, we like to it was quite a process of exploration and archaeology and discovery for me to discover how much anger and hatred there was in myself. I didn't know. When I got married, 27 or so, my mother came out to the wedding. I didn't ask my father to come because my mother didn't want him, because he would be drinking and very difficult to handle. So I acceded to her wish, and she came, and we had a nice little very lovely small wedding, and then she went on up to Vancouver, BC to be with my sister. And then my new bride and I drove up and spent 2 days in Vancouver. And this was a change in my life. I was very utterly, profoundly, unimaginably, thoroughly, codependently fused with my mother. I was an extension of her. When I left Canada and went to Australia, I worked on ships and went to Australia, I wrote my mother 60-page letters. She was agoraphobic, and I was her eyes and ears. I was the beautiful young boy who brought her flowers to help her in her loneliness and her unhappy marriage. I didn't know this was happening. I was unconscious to it. So then it came time, the wedding happened, and I went to Vancouver, and when we were leaving Vancouver, I was sobbing like an infant. And I think those around were probably very put off, but I was sobbing, and I was, because something was changing. I was letting go of my mother somehow. And all the way home in the car, all the way from Vancouver, my bride and I didn't talk. It's a long drive to not talk. And I was deeply engaged in thinking about how I can stay connected. I can write letters and I can call. There was no internet at the time. And we got home, and I thought it had been a fine trip. Such insanity. And then the fight started. A conflict started between my bride and I. And all of a sudden, I plummeted into this old blackness, this old darkness. It was so familiar to me. And all of a sudden, I also had a migraine. And I'd had migraines for years. And the migraine was such that in this instance, I found myself embracing the toilet bowl, vomiting, and screaming, "I hate you. I hate you." And I had no idea who I was talking about. This is pretty crazy, isn't it? This is borderline psychotic insanity. Well, it was very insane. And it was the beginning of coming to wake up to the profound codependency. I mean, this was, I had my chart done years ago, my astrological chart, by a woman in Chicago who was very famous. And when we got on the phone, all I gave her was my city of birth and time and date. And the first thing she said was, "Robert, how old do you think you were when you started taking care of your mother?" And I started to say, "Well, maybe a year." And she said, No. Think 15 minutes. So that's been a profound wound. It also has been a great gift. And I'm very grateful to my mother, because I got so interested for the sake of life. I got so interested in paying attention to her and attending to her subtlest move emotionally. You can't teach somebody that in social work school. The training for that starts early. And so that's been a great gift. It's one of the wounds that has been a gift in my life, that then has been a gift for the world in my work. So in that little kid, it really was hatred. And that's why I say that I've had a couple of 2-year-olds, and they mean it. They mean it. When they're lost in that rage, they would. It's a good thing they're small. And it's really important that they lose a few battles there, that they realize, oh, I'm not in charge. My rage can't make things go my way. But that's where that comes from, that understanding. And I'm so glad, because I don't have to go there anymore. That backlog, that unconscious horror, I would say, really has become not a demon anymore. That's probably more than you were asking for, but there it is. I guess summing all that up for just maybe it's our task isn't, it's funny, languages can be defined so many different ways, but our task isn't to become beings of sweetness and light. Our task is to become whole. And on the way home, going inward and down, we encounter everything. I'm taking a chance here. Those young boys in Ukraine who are committing such atrocities are no different from us. We have that in us. I certainly had that in me. And so it can create, it doesn't mean what they're doing is right or that they shouldn't be held accountable and so on. And anyone who could order the bombing or shelling of neighborhoods, I mean, that's heinous. And it's understandable through greed, hatred, and ignorance, and the delusion that we can fall into. And it sort of brings the work of awakening becomes more poignant in a way. To not let those seeds of such destruction and horror persist in us. to really take responsibility and use our practice for the true practice of purification, which is the purification of the ignorance and the projection that I could never, not me. I'm beyond all that. Well, we can be beyond that, I think, but I think it comes from awakening, not from repression. Boy, I'm on kind of a roll here. Thank you, B. I'm laughing because, incidentally, I'm wearing your socks. They're my favorite socks. That was such a nice gesture.
Good morning, Robert, Beatty.
That sounds like my dear friend, Jamie. Where are you?
I'm here.
Would you wave?
I can't. I'm not on video.
Oh, you're not on
Okay.
video. Oh, no wonder I can't see you. Okay. You're a disembodied voice. Hello.
I have a picture, but it's sort of just anyway. I wanted to read something, if that's all right. It's brief.
Of course.
It's from Welcoming the Unwelcome by Pema Chodron. The question that Pamela had about thoughts having vibration, and that really, so bear with me, this is brief. Sometimes we catch ourselves about to do something that doesn't quite feel right. We're about to react habitually, and we feel a tinge of misgiving or queasiness. At such times, we may avoid a lot of trouble by asking ourselves a simple question: does it matter? For instance, when I'm about to send a harsh or slanderous email, does it matter? Does it matter to me? Does it matter to others? When I'm about to take something that's not offered, does it matter? Does it make any difference if no one finds out? When I eat the last piece or throw the can out the window or glare at someone, does it matter? What are the consequences of my behavior? Am I causing harm to myself or others? If I go off on someone, does it matter? If I then feel justified in doing so, does it matter? Does it matter if I apologize? What drama will be set in motion by these words or this act? Will they have any larger impact on the world? When we ask ourselves, does it matter? We can first look at the outer, more obvious results of our actions, but then we can go deeper by examining how are we affecting our own mind? Am I making an old habit more habitual? Am I strengthening propensities I'd like to weaken? When I'm on the verge of lying to save face or manipulating a situation to go my way, where will that lead? Am I going in the direction of becoming a more deceitful person or a more guilty, self-denigrating person? How about when I experiment with practicing patience or generosity? How are my actions affecting my process of awakening? Where will they lead? And she goes on to talk about karma. But the last thing is, when we start to ask ourselves, does it matter? We realize how many aspects there are to every situation. We begin to appreciate how interconnected we are to the rest of the world, and how even our thought patterns can lead to a whole series of consequences for the future that is not just our own, but a future we share with many others.
Wow, that's lovely. Thank you.
And that rang like a bell with the law of karma in ways that nothing else had before reading that. So I just wanted to share that as far as vibrations. Who knows if they actually have a wave the way that a sound does, but it does matter. Yeah. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks very much, Jamie.
Hi, Robert. It's Catherine.
Hello, Catherine.
Well, taking this maybe a step further or not, but again, in the book, Manindra talked about, there was one time when somebody was taking things from someone where he was staying, and like he'd take a book and maybe leave a ball of string in its place, and the person that this was happening to thought, oh, well, it's. And when Meninder heard about that, he said, why are you letting that happen? That's no, don't let this person in your house. And then there was another instance, don't let this is bad. He's not practicing the Dharma. This is not, he's taking things from you without asking. So don't let that happen. And then there was another instance, somebody borrowed a book from Manindra and didn't return it. And Manindra tried 3-4 times to get it back. And then he finally said, okay, I'm going to consider this a donation to you. And so I was struck with, there's, is there a response? Do we have a responsibility to others? Like, it's not just you getting ripped off. They're in that action, they are ripping themselves off, or they're harming their own karma. And so, I mean, to the extent that we're awake to that, are we also responsible for, or is responsibility even the right word? But it's like the rings of this go out and out and out as you wake up, is how it seems to me. And I just wonder what you think about that.
It brings up for me a very vivid memory, or a bunch of memories actually. Having raised my 2 bio kids, 3 step kids, and now 2 more step kids through teenage, there's a certain moment when a child turns, I forget the age, it's 13, I think, when they don't qualify for child tickets anymore at the theater.
Oh, right. Yes.
And every one of my children, I think, I certainly remember it several times, their birthday has passed, and you go to buy tickets, and they pull on your sleeve and say, I don't have to get it. I don't have to get an adult ticket. I'm just, And that's the moment when one says, well, no, of course we have to get it, because that's the rule here, and we don't want to lie.
Right.
And that can be true in many different circumstances. And to be I can think of many circumstances in my life where I have not served the other person well. I have not served my role well, even. And saying, Cham, I don't want to be bothered. It's too much, and I just won't comment on it. But then something's lost in the intimacy. There's some way they become less. My open channel with them is then hindered by this kind of giving up on them in a way. So I think, and then of course there are circumstances where it doesn't make sense. That reminds me of something in this world that seems to be maybe even getting more violent. I heard a story of a person who saw some people breaking into his car, and he approached them, and he got very badly beaten. And so if you see someone breaking in your car, withdraw and call the police. Right. It was so that, there are circumstances where it makes sense to stand up for what's right, and other circumstances, and maybe it makes sense to take care of yourself that way. That's kind of an extreme thing to bring up, but yeah. And in marriage, there's some interesting moments. Like, well, do I comment on this or not? Am I willing to do the work? Am I willing to have an intimate relationship here and really expose what I'm experiencing, or is this one, is this the 10,000th thing that's leading to estrangement?
Yeah, it's tricky.
It's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I guess I just see it, especially I got this from Manindra. It's like, as you wake up to these things, you begin to see them, and then you can act. But it really, it's about how aware we are of what's going on. And once we're aware, but he knew the Dharma so well, he could just, he just knew where the Dharma led. So I guess that's the goal, though. Be so familiar with it that when you wake up, you just start to see, this is what makes sense.
I think it's a self-disempowerment to say he knew the Dharma so well. I think he knew himself very well, and you know yourself very well.
Okay.
And as the clouds part and you're more present, you'll know exactly what to do in certain it'll become clear. Oh, I have to confront this person. Okay, damn, I don't want to. What a pain in the ass. But you know, I don't think you have to.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting a phone call.
I don't think you have to know Pali and the Pali Canon in order to sense the rightness and wrongness. You know, the valence in a particular circumstance.
Okay. You know, that's so interesting. This leads me to the other thing I wanted to say, which was like the precepts. It's about for me knowing the Buddhist precepts. It's not even memorizing the precepts. It starts inside of you, though. It is about knowing yourself, knowing your heart, and it is about knowing yourself versus having somebody from on high telling you what needs to be done. It is for me. Yeah, it is about our relationships with ourselves and knowing ourselves, isn't it? Yeah.
The precepts provide some thinking tools, some cognitive tools to help us make sense of it.
Yeah.
Well, it's 20 after 8. Anybody else? This is a rich conversation, isn't it? Goodness.
Can I share one more thing? This is a joy. This is Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello. So one of the things that mindfulness has brought to my life that I wasn't expecting in the sort of like, let's be in our bodies. And I thought that was very earthy and witchy and cool, but I didn't realize how valuable it was in terms of my mind. And so just paying attention to the sensations of the body has like really, really listening to what that feels like. I've been able to get to a point where I go and recognize this is what it feels like in my body right before I say something I'm going to regret. This is what it feels like in my body right before I hurt somebody that I love. This is what it feels like in my body right before, whatever thing. And I can sort of sometimes, not always, but I can recognize those body feelings and use them as like a flag, as like this is that heads up. And I'm so thankful for that. And so Catherine, you have it so right, at least in my experience, about knowing yourself and like, what does it feel like before I'm about to step in it? So thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. Well, friends, I must go. Lovely to be with you. Very delicious, nourishing. Let us have a wonderful, mindful, caring, honest day. Bhavatu sabe mangalam. Bhavatu sabe mangalam. Bhavatu sabe mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a lovely day, friends.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Sangha.
Thank you.
Well.
Thank you.
Goodbye,
Thank you,
friends on
Robert.
Facebook.